Andrew. You know that one? Born to be Wild. Andrew knows about Born to be Wild. You're not getting Born to be Wild just yet, but Andrew will have it ready. Vroom, vroom. Isn't that it? Born to be Wild. And you'll get that in about 20 minutes' time after we have spoken to Claire Lavery of Action on Hearing Loss.
That's it.
And Action on Hearing Loss, is it a charity?
Yes, we're a charity.
Tell me about it. What is it and where are you based and what is it all about?
We're a charity that's 100 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We are UK-wide.
Yep.
Our head office is in London, but here in Northern Ireland our head office is in Belfast.
Yep.
And we have services all across the country, offering support, advice, access to services, companionship, and practical equipment and information to people who have hearing loss, who are deaf, or who have tinnitus.
Right. Of the three of those, and I said it to you, I would least like tinnitus. It must be a dreadful. It's a constant noise in your ears.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And is there no sort of mental turn-down button on the tinnitus, or does it vary during the course of a person's day?
You have hit the nail right on the head. It's about the mental turn-down.
Yep.
And that can be hard to achieve. Some people have tinnitus at a fairly low level that they have learnt to live with.
Yeah.
Some people have it at a much louder level, and it becomes difficult then to live your day-to-day life because of the noise. And the key to dealing with tinnitus is to learn how to do the mental turn down.
Wow.
So it's about retraining and retuning your brain to distract it from the sound.
So does tinnitus find its origin in the canal, the ear canal? Is it the Eustachian tubes in there? Mm-hmm. Or does it find its origin beyond that and in the brain?
Tinnitus, in most cases, is associated with damage, exposure to loud noise. So it's damage to your hearing, which can cause tinnitus. And it can be exacerbated by stress. Mm-hmm. So the more stressed you get, and people can get stressed by the noise itself, the louder the noise. And so it becomes a cyclical thing for people, and it can be quite difficult to get on top of it.
A good idea for someone with tinnitus to take up yoga and chill.
Yeah, or the many alternative therapies, and that's something we would introduce to people who may not have tried that before to try and learn to de-stress so they can get on top of the tinnitus.
But I'm trying to really understand this tinnitus thing, first of all, because for me, if I had a constant loud noise in my ears, it would drive me off the edge of the planet. I couldn't handle it. Yeah. But are people handling that on a daily basis?
Some people are handling it, some aren't handling it very well. And some people, as you say, are driven to extremes by it. And those are the people that we tend to come into contact with who've eventually found us, and then we can offer some help. There's also a specialist service in the Royal in Belfast. But for the majority of people, they learn to live with it at home, or they don't realise there's help out there, and that's why I'm glad of this opportunity to talk about it.
We're going out across the world, wherever you are. Tinnitus in Manhattan is the same as tinnitus in Macrafelt, for goodness sake, and it's there. Yeah. So if I have tinnitus, I come and I ask you for help. How can I be helped if I have tinnitus?
First thing we do is provide you with information about what it is, why it's happening.
And you've done that adequately here this morning. You've told me this.
Well, yes, and we can give you more information and maybe tailored to your particular issue.
Yeah.
And we also explain how you can try and get on top of it. And that's about introducing those therapies that I talked about, de-stressing. And there's other talking therapies and cognitive behavioural therapies that we can introduce to people. Because quite often it can relate to some other stressor that's going on in your life, and we can try to pull that out and deal with that.
And is it triggered by noise by ambient noise?
It's triggered. It is caused for a number of reasons. As I say, it could be exposure to loud noise or accident, illness, or anything. And it becomes more obvious in very quiet spaces. So in bed at night, it can become very, very loud.
Wow.
In a very quiet place, then you hear it.
Yeah. What happens if I put on earphones and play Mozart's Ave Verum Corpus? Does that help?
Yes.
That gets over it?
Yeah. And we would provide equipment that can pipe those kinds of sounds into your pillow.
Into your pillow?
Yes, a pillow that has a sound system attached to it, and it plays waterfall and those soothing sounds to distract your brain from the tinnitus noise.
So fundamentally, if the great dread that I have of tinnitus, if I get tinnitus, it's not the end of my world.
No, and I think that's the important message. People do think that it might be the end of the world, and it's not. It's about how you learn to cope with it and get on top of it and beat it to a degree. It can't be cured completely, but you can manage it.
But in the meantime, for people out there in the world working, if you're in a loud noise environment, you need ear protectors.
Yeah. And the law will protect you in the workplace. Your employer has a duty to look after your hearing, and you have a duty also to take up your responsibilities, wear your ear protection. Yeah.
So, loss of hearing, hard of hearing, deafness. What are the gradations there? Hard of hearing, is it worse than deafness? Is hard of hearing, do you first become hard of hearing and then you go deaf?
It can vary from person to person. There are people who are born profoundly deaf and who in the main may use sign language as their first language. And there's around 3,000 of those people living in Northern Ireland. And it's a very strong community, a cultural community who have strong links with each other. Then you have a group of people who acquire hearing loss as they get older, and that's a significant number. That's the largest number. The older you get, the more likely you are to have a hearing loss.
Sorry?
I have to have a pound every time I have that joke. Put it in the charity box.
It's just my age. You see, I'm 70 now, so I'm not too bad. I can hear things.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I mean, it's not inevitable, but it is more likely as you get older.
It's not like your sight. Your sight inevitably gets worse as you grow older.
And that's an interesting comparison because people who notice their sight deteriorating quite quickly go and address it.
Yes.
People who notice their hearing deteriorating don't. And on average, people wait 10 years from they first notice a dullness in their hearing until their wife or husband or children nag them enough to they go and do something about it.
But of course. But
So there's a difference there. People value their senses differently.
Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's if I can't see accurately the information on the book or the wall or the signboard, okay, I can't see it, there's something wrong with my eyes. But if I'm hearing something at level 10 instead of level 12, it's difficult to make that qualitative distinction.
And it's probably until the hearing starts to really deteriorate and you find yourself not following conversations or being on the edge of conversations, not getting the joke, and finding yourself withdrawn from social situations, then people recognise that they need to do something about
see.
it.
You mentioned the social kind of climate with people who are in this situation. We have a grounded coffee bar in Newry. Very often I see people in there and they're wonderfully animated and beautiful people and they're communicating and they're using the sign language and blah, blah, and they have some words and they can speak some words. And there is evidence there of this great kind of camaraderie between deaf people and also between deaf people and hearing people. And the hearing people have taken the trouble to learn the sign language.
Yeah, it's a very vibrant language. It's a beautiful language. Deaf people are very proud of their language.
What do you mean it's a beautiful language?
Because if you watch how people use their hands and the meanings that they derive from the hand shapes, I mean, it's fascinating, a fascinating world to have an insight into.
And is it a combination of the hand movements and the expression on the face
and the lip movement.
And the lip movement. And part of that's lip reading.
Yeah, there probably is a part of it that's lip reading, but a lot of it is to do with facial expression because some signs may mean different words and you can differentiate between the words using all of the other signals, the face.
I heard, and this fascinated me because on the island of Ireland we're a very strange people. We have he walks behind the green, he walks behind the red, he walks behind the orange. I couldn't believe it once when I was told. There's a different sign language in the south of Ireland to that which exists in Northern Ireland. Is that right?
That's correct. But it's not a political.
Madness.
It's not a political.
Oh no, it's not political, but it's madness.
It's because of the schooling system, and the deaf school in Dublin used a different. The nuns taught the sign language there, and they used a different school of learning than the British schools.
Doesn't that mean essentially that a deaf person in Dundalk will not be, in its most pristine form, will not be able to communicate by sign language with a deaf person in Newry?
But that's the beauty of sign language and of deaf people generally. They can communicate even with someone who uses Thai sign language or Japanese sign language.
Oh yeah.
There's a certain level of understanding
Yeah.
that they will have, and they'll be able to
Yeah.
pick it up. And this being a small island, being a small community, and people haven't gone from here to school and the deaf school in Dublin, there's a lot of intermixing. They would understand
They would
each
understand.
other. Yeah.
So it's they're not disadvantaged, but would it be an ideal situation if by some magic wand we could say everyone north, south, east and west who is deaf will speak the same sign language?
Well, that's like saying that your and my accent should be the same.
Is it only a matter of accent? Is that how serious?
Well, it is actually a different language. It's made up differently.
Yeah, yeah, that's my point.
Yeah,
it's not like accent.
But you couldn't have everyone in the world speaking the one language.
No, that's true.
You know,
That's
and
true.
they have a strong cultural identity to the language that they use.
Yeah, okay. God bless the nuns.
Aye.
They taught them. So now, the extent of the problem in Northern Ireland,
1 in 6 people have a hearing loss.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's about 300,000 people here in Northern Ireland. A huge number, vast
Okay.
number of people, mostly in that category that we talked about who have lost their hearing over time, and older people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So very, very common, but still something that doesn't get the awareness or the seriousness attributed to it that it should, in our view.
Neither does it get the research.
No, we fund some research action on hearing loss nationally, funds biomedical research to look into treatments and cures ultimately for hearing loss and tinnitus.
Is it your expectation that that research will deliver a cure? How far along the road are you?
It's years and years away.
Yeah.
Yeah, years
So
away.
it's-
One of the areas that we look at is regeneration of hair cells in the ear. They're minute,
Oh, yeah.
and they help move the sound from the outside to the inside along your ear canal.
Yeah.
And if you're exposed to loud noise or your hearing is damaged over time, those hair cells become flattened. They cannot be regrown. The sound will never come back.
Wow, because they're an essential conduit.
Exactly.
Yeah, the sound is here.
Yeah.
The ear mechanism for picking it up is here.
Yeah.
But the interim, the conduit here,
Yeah.
are these tiny, tiny hair follicles. They're more than follicles, they're tiny,
Tiny
hairs. And they take it and bing, bing,
Yeah.
send it on.
That's it. And the only animals that can regenerate those cells are birds. So we're looking at how birds can do it, how we can't do it, and how that could be replicated in
Yeah,
the human ear.
yeah.
So all that kind of research is ongoing, but it's probably years away.
Yeah, I know it's a silly thing to say, but in a sense there's a wisdom in it. It's as you're older, it's not less important, but if you're a young person at school at the beginning of education,
Yeah.
your hearing is more fundamentally precious to you.
Or
Because
if
you've-
you're in the workplace.
In the workplace, yeah. But as an older person, you know, you can actually adapt and you can work at, I'm not being ageist here, but you can listen more carefully, or you're not completely beaten, and you've done all the learning that maybe you want to learn. But a young person coming along is totally and completely disadvantaged
Yeah.
in the educative system.
Yes, you're right. What I would say about older people is that because they don't attend college anymore, they don't go to work, they may end up becoming quite isolated because of their hearing loss and end up staying at home. So that's the danger there. And we
Yeah.
would have a lot of different services and projects to bring people out and to make people mix.
How does your charity operate in terms of, do you have groups all over Northern Ireland, little groups who work to raise awareness and raise funds?
We have volunteers across Northern Ireland, most of whom are older people, most of whom have a hearing loss or wear hearing aids themselves. They would provide clinics in different locations to help you fix your hearing aid, learn
yeah.
how to change the battery and how to clean it and look after it. They will offer befriending one-on-one, so I
Yeah.
can go to your home and we can have a cup of tea every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or, yes, we have groups where people can come together and socialise in a social environment. And then we have a whole range of other services and activities for profoundly deaf people as well.
One of the awful things, I look around and I see hearing aids, and they are the audio equivalent to a hooked hand prosthesis. They're ugly as be damned. They're like tractor wheels sticking out of somebody's head, and you go, ah, and it offends you, and you put it's immediately it distances the human being from you because, well, that's filthy. I don't want to talk to you, kind of. But where are we on the design of these things?
This is a major issue. People have a dislike of hearing aids. They don't like the look of them.
No.
They feel that if they wear one, it means they're old.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of stigma attached to hearing aids. What the argument on our part is, once you start wearing one and you see the benefit, you'll not worry about what it looks like because you'll derive so much more benefit from it. But we recognise there's a need to make them a bit more aesthetically pleasing.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a market there. I mean, glasses have revolutionised. I used to wear NHS glasses myself.
Wow.
And now I'm wearing Red or Dead glasses. So
what are
you
those,
can
what are those
see
glasses?
Red or Dead.
Red or Dead, what is that?
And there's many other brands
I see.
available.
Yeah, yeah. Red or Dead.
But you can see the transformation there that designers have got
Absolutely.
into glasses, and hopefully they would get into hearing aids also.
Well, why, it's a wee thing, just a thought. A pair of glasses. This part of the glasses is very close to my ear.
Yeah.
Is there no way of picking up here on the microphone here, and it's fed back and in Bing, and then you don't have a hearing aid at all, but it's working for you?
Something there. You might have a whole money making scheme.
Never did in my life, so it's not going to start now. I tell you.
Never know.
But I think it's an important consideration because one, the hearing aids that I see segregate, and it's not too strong a word, those who are deaf from those who aren't, because there's an impediment there apart from the hearing. You have this huge mechanical chunk sticking out of your ear, and you don't want it. Is anything been done about that at all?
There are much smaller hearing aids that you can get and that are in the ear, not behind the ear, and they're less visible. Some of the NHS trusts and audiology departments will supply those, but you can buy them on the high street privately if you wish. It's up to an individual choice, but the NHS hearing aids, which are in the main behind the ear, are free of charge and of very, very good quality. So, it's about a personal choice.
Yeah. So your organisation, Action and Hearing Loss, you're vibrant. You're the market leader in this area.
Yeah.
What's the span of facilities you offer people?
We have a whole range of services. As I mentioned earlier, we rely on volunteers, and that's one thing I wanted to say to you this morning. If anyone in this area, or indeed anywhere else, is interested in volunteering, we would welcome them with open arms.
Yeah.
Volunteers help us to deliver the services, the hearing aid support services, the befriending one-on-one, the group services that we offer for company and befriending. We also offer services for profoundly deaf people. Young people, as you mentioned,
profoundly deaf. Now that's a new phrase. Yeah.
Sign language users is what I would be talking about in that group.
Yeah, they have no hearing at all.
Most have very little.
Yeah.
And haven't had from birth and have learned sign language as they've grown up. Informally, usually. Informally, they pick it up in the playground from each other quite often.
Yeah.
Those group of people are very much excluded. So young deaf people coming from schools, mainstream schools, find it really tough to identify what job they might want to do, how to conduct themselves at an interview, how to complete an application form. So we would have services to assist people in that journey.
Do you have any statistics to show how many profoundly deaf students go on to university?
There's a handful, and actually the number has decreased over the last number of years. We had an assembly question recently about it, comparing from 5 years ago, and I think it's dropped by maybe 50%. So you're only talking 100 people. I don't know the figure on the top of my head.
Do you know what you're doing there? You're almost communicating me in sign language, but you're bringing me forward to that. And that's something you would do with people you work with, yes?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I saw
maybe
that.
a default position.
That's nice. It's nice, though. It's good. It's good. But you see, I would assume that there is more than a handful of profoundly deaf people intelligent enough to be in university.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's their lack of hearing that's standing in the way of it.
Well, you can look at it as their lack of hearing. We prefer to look at it as the barriers that society have created for them.
Yeah.
So it's not their hearing.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Of course, absolutely, and no different from anyone else. They just haven't maybe been given the information and the education in an accessible way, in a way that they can learn.
Yeah.
They're not given information about future careers in a way that they can access.
Yeah.
English language is their second language.
Yeah. Second language.
Second language.
Of course.
So written material, quite often for a lot of deaf people, is just, not accessible.
The other obvious point, but it's only coming to me now, and I should have thought of it earlier. If I am profoundly deaf, I am going to have great, great difficulty learning to speak.
Well, there's an argument.
Speaking is an imitative thing.
Yeah.
I want to learn to talk. I learn to talk because someone says, mama, dada, and I say, mama, dada. But if I can't hear the mama and the dada, how then will I ever say mama and dada?
And many years gone by, and maybe in some cases, and certainly in the family situation, people are made to learn to speak.
Made to learn.
And in school systems years ago, they weren't allowed to use sign language. They were made to learn to speak. And this is why they were then deemed as not being bright enough, because it was assumed that they weren't understanding what was being said. It was a language barrier. It was a communication barrier.
Yeah.
It's nothing about level of intelligence. So
I know
deaf
that.
people suffered a lot of discrimination over the years for those very reasons.
Yeah. But if we can't, if you and I can't hear something right from the day we're born, we don't know what language is supposed to sound like. So we're immediately and terribly disadvantaged in learning the language. And in fact, it's a miracle that profoundly deaf people can speak at all. I don't know the mechanism by which they know that's how you say the alphabet A, B, C, D, E. I don't know how they know to say that, because they have no way of ever having heard it in their lives.
A lot of people probably would have some level of residual hearing and some, level at which they can pick that up. And a lot of deaf people do have some voice, but an awful lot of deaf people over the years have switched off their voice. They'd call it switching it off, because they're aware that it doesn't sound like everyone else. And they maybe were made fun of at school. So a lot of deaf people don't actually even use their voice anymore.
Yeah. Are human beings in our society cruel?
Oh, very much so.
Really?
Yes, very much so.
And how does it find expression with your people?
And I think cruel in a subconscious way, and maybe cruel is too strong a word, but still a lot of discrimination, a lot of negative attitudes towards deaf people. And that is because people are not aware. They're not even aware they're discriminating in many cases.
Yeah.
And it can be about attitude, that the bus driver might prefer to maybe not pick you up. Or that employer may think, oh, it's going to be far too much hassle to employ this person. How are they ever going to do their job or communicate with my other staff, so I won't employ you. As opposed to thinking of what they can put in place to support them to do their job. So that at every level is still going on, very much so.
And you see, I really, really don't think there's a great political imperative to get something done about it.
There should be, if you think there's 300,000 people and they all have a vote.
Yeah, there should be, and their families and all of that. But what is the state of political representation for folk with the difficulties?
We have very warm support from across the political parties. There's no doubt that no one disagrees with anything we're saying, and we have some particular champions. But Stormont moves quite slowly. It takes quite a long time to get things to happen. But we have made significant progress. We have had an investment in the training of new interpreters. So that came from the Department of Employment and Learning. We've had investment from the Department of Health in the training of lip reading teachers. So eventually the lobbying work that we does pay off in terms of delivering services on the ground, but it's a slow process.
Slow process, surely. So you have offices in Belfast, yeah?
Yeah, with a very
Where are you?
Good office in Adelaide Street, behind City Hall.
So people can call in with you?
Call in. We have a vast range of equipment on display. You can take it home and try it out, your amplified telephone or flashing doorbell or whatever it might be. And if you want to buy it, we can sell it to you. You can come and get information, you can come and get your hearing aid seen to, and you can come and access any of the services. So
I heard you talking about things that flashing doorbells and stuff. I think it was Neil told me about Neil Powell, the dog trainer.
Right.
He has dogs that he uses and trains to be of assistance to people who maybe are epileptic. The dog can detect that there's an epileptic fit going to occur minutes beforehand. It acts, and then if the phone rings, the dog can draw attention to it, or the doorbell rings. The doorbell rings, and you go and you open the door. Has that been employed at all in Northern Ireland?
There's an organisation called Hearing Dogs for the Deaf.
Yes.
A little bit like a guide dog, only they wear a red coat, a burgundy coat. The Hearing Dogs for the Deaf. There are a very small number of people in Northern Ireland who have one, and exactly that. If the doorbell rings, they'll let their owner know. If someone's at the door or the telephone rings, and they'll take them out and about. And quite often in the workplace, in our head office in London, there was a guy had one, and the wee dog used to run about the office. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. How long have you been doing this job?
10 years.
Why did you come to this job?
I've always worked in the charity sector. Probably indoctrinated now. I don't think I'll leave it.
Yeah.
And there's a certain added incentive when you feel that you're impacting on people in a positive way.
Of course there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
has to be the benefit. The other benefits, the fiscal benefits, aren't always as
no,
good.
but I mean, I think it was Macefield who said it. Oh, for a man the joy of living
Well.
is not for having for himself but giving.
Yeah.
For life is empty and nature is bare without the friend of the larger share, which is a good mantra for people in charity work, you know. This is it. Have you anyone in your own family who is challenged in this way?
Yeah, I have someone who has experienced some hearing loss, but who is probably at the stage where they're in a little bit of denial about it. And that's a significant proportion of people are in that situation. So it's about recognising, as I talked about, recognising you've got a problem and doing something about
But
it.
see, there's nothing wrong with saying, look, help me, please.
But the worry is they'll end up with the big mechanical chunk that you talked about on their ear.
Yeah, I know that. I would almost prefer to the mechanical chunk a big brass horn that I would go, there's got a certain je ne sais quoi to that, where the other thing looks as though it's half your brains hanging out or something. So somebody's got to do something about that.
They're getting slimmer and slimmer all of the time,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Okay, you have a website?
We have a website, and I would encourage people, if they want to check their hearing,
Yes.
we have a application online that you can check both ears to see if they're in normal range or not.
And what is the website?
So the website is www.actiononhearingloss.
I'll say that as well. actiononhearingloss.org.uk. .org.uk. Now I'll say it and you say it as well because they're all scrummily get pencils now. actiononhearingloss.org.uk. That sounds good to me.
And if you want to check your hearing, you just put a /hearing check. And that'll bring you straight to the hearing check.
So action on hearing loss / hearing check. Yeah. And it's maybe an obvious enough thing, but if I'm communicating with you, if I'm talking to you, and you're a person who has lost hearing, I should be very specific in the way I speak.
You should use good communication skills that you look at me.
Yeah.
You don't cover your mouth. You speak clearly.
Yeah.
You don't need to speak more slowly. You don't need to speak more loudly.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure that you're engaging the person, and that if they don't understand, you repeat it and possibly in a different way.
Yeah. Okay.
Could I make one last appeal?
You can do anything you want. Did you enjoy your tea?
I did. Thank you very
good.
much. It was good to get a cup of tea at this time of day. We are always keen to have volunteers, and I would welcome anyone who has any skills at all. We can work with you to train you up. And the other thing is, if anyone enjoys fundraising and running, we are seeking people to take part in the Belfast Marathon on the 5th of May.
Now, is there a phone number? Because that could be useful for people wanting, who don't go on.
Sure.
So let's get the phone number as well. Okay, what is it?
028
028
90
90
239
239
619.
619.
Yes, that's it.
028 90 239 619.
That's us.
That's Action on Hearing Loss. And you heard it here.
Thank you very much
Thank you so
indeed.
much.
Thank
Go
you.
well. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Andrew, Maestro, music, please.